Hello, I'm Ace. Welcome to Ace Modding. My race mod for console got approved for console today, so that was a big step, and yeah, to celebrate it I decided to make a guide on it. So a guide on how to publish race mods for console, because usually you cannot publish race mods for console the traditional way, so I created a workaround and I'm going to share this workaround with you today. Yeah, the thing is with the workaround, like, it's not that complicated at the end, but it took me a long time to find this specific solution. So if you use this method to make your own race mods for console, please just reference me, say that you got the idea by my guides or based on my mods, and link the people to my YouTube channel and my mod.io page, and then I'm fine with that. So use this, make nice mods for console. Let's give console players some more things to have, to work with, to play with, and yeah, let's get started. So a little like disclaimer. So far we've been working for the race mods, not for the race mods, for the normal like modding tutorials, just inside one mod, which was the tutorial mod. This is a little bit different of a topic today, so I'm not gonna work in the tutorial mod because I'm not gonna publish that for console, and that wasn't the intention at the start at all. So instead I'm gonna show you my mod that actually got approved for console, and based on this mod I'm gonna show you what I did and how I did these things. There are some things, for example, like custom portraits, that I'll still cover in another guide. This is just to show people the general spiel of how I created this mod for console players. It's also available for PC, but the special thing is that it is available for console. So let me minimize this. And here we go. So, 1 second. What you want to start with is you want to decide, obviously, which type of race do you want to offer. You want to make sure that you don't make a classical race mod, so nothing that uses shaders, nothing that uses the character customization screen. So what you need to do is create basically a polymorph, and boosted polymorph, like that is nicer than a normal polymorph, that then gives the players on console the chance to transform into the polymorph and feel like they're using a race mod and are a different race, although they technically are still their old race but polymorphed into a new race. So to do that, what you have to start with is making a lot of like different types of presets that the player can choose from, right? So if I show it to you here, like I have all these underwear items because the polymorph is linked to an armor item. I decided to have it be underwear, and that is due to a specific reason too, because I tried first to do it without any armor, just by giving a spell or something like that. The thing is, as long as you wear the armor item, you can apply a passive that then always brings the player back into form, because if you don't have that, there are certain cutscenes. There's one cutscene at least with Will where he gets out of goblin form either way, but in general, like, there are a lot of different cutscenes every night at camp, every night that you go, you know, to sleep, or that you generally get to camp, you would otherwise be transformed out. And the passive link to the underwear makes sure that even in dialogue scenes and stuff like that, you'll still be in your transformed polymorphed form. So it actually gives the player the feeling of being able to be that race and not constantly being like put out of disguise, put back in, because then it would not feel like you're that race, but it would just feel like, I don't know, something on crutches, but not like a proper race experience, right? And that's the goal, to give a proper race experience. So what you can see here is, first I created a lot of like U2 and U1. Those are just things for myself to like mock updates. but in general you can see here like I created like a lot of different customized visual presets. I also have a guide if you're interested in how to change visuals of summons, but it also applies for this one-on-one, so you can watch that guide, see how you can change the visuals of these characters. And an important thing was also, based on the research that I did, to mainly work with in-game assets that already exist, and to just make sure that it's smoother for console. So this is all, like, there's not a lot of information out there about console approval or console release. It's very minimalistic. I'll also show that in the end, just that you have it like listed, but I'm just gonna explain while I go on. So first thing you want to do is you want to create, you can just start by one single visual, but you want to create at the end multiple visuals that the player can choose from, because they cannot customize the goblin or whatever race it is that you're providing. So what you have to do is come up with different creative presets that the player could like, that they then can choose from and play as. So what I did with this mod, for example, is I did different sub-races. These are the Firecast goblins, in short barrel called here. So you can see there are like 4 versions of each, for example. Then the same with like different sub-races. Here, this is one method that you can do. You either make like specific goblins or specific whatever race you do for a sub-race and make the visuals look specific for that sub-race. For example, here like all of the Batiri goblins are like greenish, have like very greenish skin, brownish hair tones, very natural looking. But then for my devil race mod, for example, I decided that you can just choose if you want to play Campion or Succubus. And you can do that for every available visual preset that there is. Both of them come with different pros and cons. I'm gonna get to that a little bit later, just so you get a first overview. The second thing you gotta do is you gotta create underwear. So for every visual, and or if you want to give, like, for example, actually let's get back to the point from before. I said there are different pros and cons, right? We'll just go directly into it. If you do it like this, like I did here, for every sub-race you create their own custom visuals. You just need to create one underwear for each visual, or one armor item for each visual. If you do want to use, for example, this goblin appearance, if you would want to use it for 4 different sub-races, you could just create this one, and then you could create 4 different underwear items just for this one appearance that you created. And then through the underwear items you assign the status effects and the polymorph effects that then determine which type of passives and skills the character has in that sub-race form. So that's how you can see, okay, do I want to do it this way, do I want to do it that way? So as I said, first you create the presets, the visual presets that you like. Second, you create an underwear item, and then we gotta go into the stats editor. So for example, with summons, you usually want to link the summons in the stats editor under character. Here we don't have to do that. So for example, I do have a summon in this mod, a little like raptor baby. This is linked here. That's how you do it for other summons, and you should usually do it. If you do it for polymorph, you don't need to do that. So that's why there's no polymorphs listed here, which is a great thing, because it takes a little bit of the work away from our shoulders. What you do have to do is you have to link the armor items that you created to the stats. So what you do is you go to stats, to armor, and then you can see here there's like all the different underwear items that I had. And now we're getting into the deeper like things, how this works. I'm trying to make this a bit more beginner friendly, so if you're more advanced modder, you can just skip some parts. But you basically like set up the things here, and then you wanna, this is the important thing, the only thing you do with the underwear is you give it a passive. So for me, I call it stay in form. For the player it's called stay in form. For me it's called here in this mod ASE and R, and R is for new races, my tag for these type of mods for console races. Keep disguise passive. So that means that then after you do this for every item, you have to make sure to not give them the same passive. You have to make a passive for each character that you make, or if it's with another subrace, for each subrace. So it really has to be like specifically, right? Here you see this is the underwear of the Batiri AF, and then here's the passive of the underwear of the keep disguise Batiri AF. And then we'll have the polymorph effect of the Batiri AF. So you have to do these for every single one that you create. After you did this, you're gonna open your passives. And then you can see here the passive that before we linked to the armor are now all listed here. What you want to do with that, I personally did like one general passive that then I built the others on. But what you want to do with that, you can use the Xantrian Demon Spirit gloves as a base if you want to. Give it your name, description if you need, your custom icon if you want. Properties, you want to say is toggled default on and temporary. Stats functions, I have on damage, on status applied. And then the stats functions here. Gonna enlarge this a little bit so it's better to see. So this is the important part. This is what happens in the background to keep the disguise active, which is one of the new things that I came up with for this mod. The stats functions under W, you want to write not has status and then the polymorph status. So if you didn't read it now, so to say, we didn't do any polymorphs yet, you just write the name and you remember the name. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to do this for every single one. So for every single one it has to be customized. The next row you can see here is under X is apply status, and then your polymorph effect, comma, space 100, comma, space -1, brackets closed. Y toggle on functions, you have apply status, brackets, your polymorph name, comma, space 100, comma, space -1, brackets closed. And then under Z toggle off functions, you'll have remove status, then your polymorph effect, and brackets closed. This is basically everything you need under the passive. And then you can open your status data and go to your status polymorph. And this is where you then define link all the polymorphs, so to say, to the armor passive that you created before, so that when they equip the armor, they will transform into the root template of the visual of the goblin or whatever race you're working on that you created. So here we have the goblins, right? I created a parent, so it's easier to work with it. Display name, I just gave it goblinoid, and for the subraces I gave it Batiri goblinoid, for example. I gave it a custom icon, but the important parts are back here. So under BE template ID, you do want to enter every root template ID, UID, for each of the different transformations that you want to undergo. This is the most important part, so that you get the transformation at all. Under rules, BF, you want to do disguise, keep name, status group, SG disguise, and then status effect, you want to do disguise self, tiefling male status effect. This doesn't have to be specified for you, you just want to keep one that already exists, so to say. And then when you do that, you have basically the polymorph, you have the passive that keeps it constantly active, and you then can apply here. That's why, for example, I made these like subcategories here, as you can see. You can then assign like boosts and passives. So for example, boosts, I gave an increase in stealth, I gave a goblin disengage for every goblin, goblin war cry, a throw rock ability, and then passive things like attack of opportunity. That's just the standard things. You can look them up, see what fits your race, and assign it. The most important part was just that you have the passive, that you have the polymorph, that you have these rules for the polymorph, and then apply that. Another thing is that you have to obviously place it in the world somewhere, so you can do that with the treasure tables and the tutorial chest or vendor treasure tables. I'm not going to go into that here because there's another guide that you can watch on it from me or from other people, probably too. I'll just link you the one that I created on linking things to the tutorial chest, but that's what you then can do for the armor pieces. And then continuing from that, the last things I would like to show you is if we go to the root templates of the goblins, or of whichever like race you're making, right? You can here, on one hand, make sure it's not super important, I think, but I think it helps that it's a neutral NPC. Like I think it's under faction. Yeah, make it a neutral NPC, because if you work with like devils or stuff like that, like I did for some other mods, there might be like evil. I don't think it's gonna do anything, but you know, especially if you want to release something for console, you gotta make sure that it works well. So I'd rather like make sure nothing happens here. Then you can go to tags, and under tags you can see I have here the tags Barbarian, Fighter, Evil Cleric. That is because I want to give the feeling of a new race, also with like RP options, right? If you talk to someone and you can't answer in the style of your race, it takes a little bit away. So if you offer the players like some options that maybe fit thematically, like Evil Cleric, I feel like Barbarian, Fighter, they do fit for goblins, so I gave them these tags. Now here we also come to a disadvantage if you don't do a look for each sub-race, but you do one look that then can be accessed through different underwear items and give the feel of different sub-races. Because if you do a root template for each sub-race, for each character, you can assign specific tags here. For example, what I did with the, let's take the Batiri goblins. They're like more nature related. So the Batiri goblins have these extra tags: Ranger, Ranger Gloomstalker, Beastmaster, and Hunter. And I can only do that because they have their own sub-racial specific root templates. If you use them for multiple, you just have to find common tags that you just want to use for them if you want to use tags at all. But I think it like really gives like a nice flavor. I think besides that, there's nothing that you need to change here, but depending on which race you do, shout out to Xiphias Rex. I don't know if I pronounce his name correctly, but he helped me with this on Discord, in the Larian Discord. So this is something that, like, for example, with my Kobold race, allow receive decall when animated. I stumbled into the problem that when my Kobold cast a spell, there were no animations for spellcasting for kobolds programmed into the game. So what happened is, you click the spell, you wait, and then it shoots a fireball. Or whatever you clicked, right? Whichever spell you clicked. So to prohibit that, you do want to check this button here, and that will allow you to then skip the animations that don't have any related animations for the class or the race that you're creating, and then it will just still not have animations for it, but it will just directly shoot the fireball without an animation instead of having to wait 5 seconds for it. So check this little box if you run into that problem with the races that you create. And yeah, besides that, you don't have to give a specific name in the root templates. You just want to mark it in the underwear and tell the people in the underwear what it's for. So here I said underwear of the Cindercast model AF. And but yeah, for these, like seeing that we have the disguise keep name, this name will not show. Instead, it will just show the name of the character itself. So if I as Ace play and I transform into a goblin, it will not show goblin, but it will show Ace, but then it will show the goblin visuals. So that's basically it. As I said, it's not that complicated to execute it at the end. It was just complicated to find this solution, and it was a lot of trial and error. If you want to use this method, please credit me, link my mod.io account, link my YouTube. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments or in any other way. I hope you have fun with this, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.